Hello everyone, welcome back to fineLEARN. I am Kaustuvi and today we will study about the advent of the Aryans and the age of the Rig Veda, which is covered in chapter 7 of the history textbook by R.S. Sharma. Here we will discuss about the origin of the Aryans, their migration, where they appeared in India, their social structure, their political structure, their religious practices, etc. Right? So do watch the video till the end because each and every slide will have important points. And you can rest assured we will not miss anything. We'll cover the entire chapter thoroughly. Okay, so let us start. Before starting with the identity of the Aryans, I just like to recollect about the Harappan civilization that we have discussed in the previous lectures. Now, when discussing about the decline of the Harappan civilization, one of the factors responsible for decline was the invasion of the Aryans. Now, although we are not sure whether the decline was because of the Aryans, but still we have evidences that the Aryans occupied the same area which was occupied by the Harappans. Okay. Now, talking about the origin of the Aryans, again different theories have been put forward. Okay, but the most accepted theory is that the Aryans originated in southern Russia, then they traveled to Central Asia, and then they came to India. And in India, they entered through the northwestern part. Okay, so southern Russia, from there they came to Central Asia, okay, and from there they entered India through the northwestern passes. Now, if we again recollect the third chapter where we talked about the geographical setting of the country, we understood that on the northwestern side of the country, there were certain mountain ranges like the Suleiman ranges or the Hindu Kush mountains. These mountain ranges have certain passes, yes, mountain passes, through which, like the Khyber Pass, the Gomal Pass, if you remember some of them, through these passes, the Aryans actually entered into the Indian subcontinent. Okay, here. And as the Harappans also flourished in the Indus Valley, right? The same area, that is the Indus region, was again occupied by the Aryans when they entered India, right? The Aryans, they are also distinguished as a linguistic group of people, okay? As a linguistic group of people who spoke Indo-European languages. Now, Indo-European languages are found in the changed forms in all over Europe, in Iran and India's Indian subcontinent. Like we have Greek and Sanskrit, which come under the family of Indo-European languages. Okay, Sanskrit under Indo-European language family. And evidences show that on the way to India, the Aryans, when traveling from Russia to Central Asia and then to India, on the way they appeared in Iran. Now, from where do we know about the Aryans? Where are the Aryans mentioned? First is the Rig Veda. Then we have the Kassite inscriptions of the 1600 BC and we also have the Mitanni inscriptions of Iraq. Okay, so these are the inscriptions where we find mention about the Aryans. Now, Rig Veda is important here. Okay, Rig Veda plays a very important part in the early Vedic period, that is about the Aryans. Whatever information, most of the information that we have about the Aryans is mainly from the Rig Veda. Now, what is Rig Veda? It is one of the 4 Vedas that we have and it is the oldest of the Vedas, right? And it is the earliest specimen of any Indo-European language. Rig Veda is actually a collection of prayers offered to gods like Agni, Varun, Indra, etc. by poets and sages. Rig Veda has 10 books or 10 parts which are referred to as mandalas. Okay, so it has 10 mandalas. Again, the Rig Veda has similarities with an Iranian text. Okay, Avesta. Avesta is the oldest text in Iranian language. And it has similarities with the Rig Veda. Now, we can relate it to this because the Aryans, before coming into India, okay, where Rig Veda was composed, they also appeared in Iran. So, there were some similarities between the Rig Veda and the Avesta. Now, here I would just like to say another thing. If we have to discuss about the religious texts or the religious literature of ancient India, like we have the Vedas, the Upanishads, the Brahmanas, the Aranyakas, etc. This can become a separate video. So, if you want me to come up with a separate or a compiled lecture on the different religious literature, do let me know in the comment section. Now, Aryans, they appeared in India in around 1500 BC or even little earlier than that. Okay, but the Aryans, they did not come all together. Okay, they came in waves. They came in groups of people. Like one group came and again after some time another group came. So, they migrated in waves. Okay. Now, the Vedic period, we divide it broadly into the early Vedic period and the later Vedic period. Now the early Vedic period is the period of the Rig Veda, and the later Vedic period is the period where the other 3 Vedas have been composed. Now when we talk about the advent of the Aryans, we refer to the Rigvedic period, which is from 1500 BC to around 1000 BC. And the later Vedic period is from around 1000 BC to 600 BC, which we will be discussing about in the next lecture. Okay. Now when Aryans they entered India, the area that were occupied by them are Eastern Afghanistan, Punjab and Western UP. Okay. And the area or the region occupied by the Aryans is mentioned to as or referred to as the Sapta Sindhu region or the land of 7 rivers. Okay. Sapta Sindhu region or the land of 7 rivers. Now which are the 7 rivers? First is the river Indus, which in Sanskrit is called Sindhu. Then the 5 tributaries of the Indus, that is Ravi, Jhelum, Chenab, Beas and Satluj. And apart from this, we also have the river Saraswati. Okay. Saraswati river actually is now no longer seen and it is lost in the sands of Rajasthan. And most probably the area of the Saraswati river is now covered by the river Ghaggar, which is mostly a seasonal monsoon-fed river. Okay. The names of these rivers as they appear in the Rig Veda are little different. They are Parushni, Vitasta, Asikni, Vipas and Satodri. Okay. Indus is referred to as Sindhu. Okay. So this is the area where the Aryans occupied. The river Indus and the river Saraswati, they are the most important rivers of the Aryans. Okay. Now coming to the conflicts of the Aryans with the different groups. Now see, when the Aryans they entered India through the northwestern region. Now before the Aryans entered into India, there were obviously other indigenous people staying in these regions, right? Other indigenous people stay in this region. Now what might have happened? Definitely conflicts might have happened between the Aryans and the indigenous people who occupied this area, right? Now the indigenous inhabitants have been referred to as Dasas or Dashyus in the Veda, okay? And Dasyu Hatya or slaughter of the Dashyus is repeatedly mentioned in the Rig Veda, okay? The Aryans are actually considered superior. Aryan, the word Aryan itself actually means noble, okay? They are considered superior, okay? And their supremacy has been established, okay, in the different conflicts and battles that took place between these groups, okay? And the Aryan chief who overpowered the Dashyus, he was called the Trasa Dashyu. Rig Veda also mentions about god Indra, who is referred to as Purandara. Purandara means breaker of forts. Indra inflicted defeats on the enemies of the Aryans as mentioned in the Rig Veda. Okay. Now, the success of the Aryans in India is actually attributed to their material possessions, okay? And the animal horse played a very important role in the lives of the Aryans because the Aryans kept on migrating and they mostly migrated on backs of horses, okay? They even possessed horse-driven chariots, okay? This is interesting. They possess horse-driven chariots and they are the first ones to introduce horse-driven chariots in these areas, okay? And most probably, they were also equipped with better arms, okay? Intertribal conflicts were very common. Now, the Aryans, they themselves were divided into 5 tribes. They are called the Panchajana and they again fought amongst themselves. So, intertribal conflicts were also there. And it is also said that because of the Aryans, okay, because of the conflicts between the Aryans and the indigenous people in this region, the indigenous people were forced to move towards the south, okay, towards the Deccan Plateau. Because the Aryans were superior, the indigenous people were defeated, they moved towards the south. This is believed. Now here we mention about 2 tribes or 2 ruling Aryan classes. They are the Bharatas and the Trishtus. Okay, they are the ruling Aryan class and they were supported by priest Vashishtha. Okay, priest Vashishtha. Priest or the Purohit was a very important functionary during the time of the Aryans. Okay, Bharata, if you can recollect again, the word Bharatvarsha, right? The word Bharatvarsha, that is the name of the land of India, has actually come from the name of the tribe Bharata. Okay. Now many battles, big and small, have been fought between these groups and we will mention about the important ones, okay? And the battle of the 10 kings, this is important, battle of 10 kings which was fought on the bank of the river Parushni, Ravi. Parushni Ravi, can you recollect? Harappa, the site of Harappa was on the bank of river Ravi, right? So try to recollect the things, okay? When you get the name of a river or the name of a mountain range or some area or some site, try to recollect if you can recollect it or connect it with some other or earlier information that you have acquired. Okay. Now, the Battle of 10 Kings was fought between Bharata clan, and a host of 10 kings on the other side. The 10 kings, 5 of them were Aryan kings and 5 were non-Aryan kings. Okay. But in this Battle of 10 Kings, again, the Bharata clan established their supremacy. Okay. The Bharatas then joined the Purus. Okay. And they formed a new ruling clan called the Kurus. Here, Kurus. The Kurus again joined hands with the Panchalas, another group, an important tribe again. They together ruled the upper Gangetic basin. Now, after the conflicts and the formation of different clans, we now discuss about the material life of the Aryans. Now, as we have discussed, they possessed horses, horse-driven chariots, and possibly better arms. Okay, made of bronze. Also, we are not very much clear about it. Okay, the use of bronze. They had a good knowledge on agriculture because we also find the mention of a plowshare or a wooden plowshare in the Rig Veda. The most important form of wealth, however, for the Aryans was cow. And the war, okay, the term war was referred to in the Rig Veda as Gavishti. Gavishti means search for cows. So we can understand that most of the wars fought between the groups were mainly for cows or cattle. Okay, gifts made to priests after a win in wars and battles were also in terms of cows and women slaves, but not in terms of land. Land was not until then an established type of property or private property. Okay. The Aryans practiced several crafts including metal making, but we do not find the evidence of any trade. Okay, existence of trade, we do not find any mention about it. Possibly the Aryans again lived in some kind of mud settlements. Okay, although this is again not very clear. Why do we not have many evidences of the Aryan phase? Because the Aryans were mainly, they migrated, okay, the nomadic people, they migrated to different areas and therefore they could not leave behind a much solid evidences, okay. We do not find solid pieces of evidence from this period. And the Harappan people, if we compare it with the Aryans, they were earlier than the Aryans, right? The Harappan civilization is earlier than the Aryans, but we know now the type of systematic planning the towns had, or their drainage system, and even if we talk of the irrigation, they were much more developed, right? So you can compare. Aryans came later, but they were again a rural civilization, okay? And the settlements were not at all developed. It was some kind of a haphazard settlement. Bhagwanpura in Haryana and some other 3 sites in Punjab, we find the evidence of painted grey ware together with the late Harappan pottery. Painted grey ware or painted grey pottery, the date that is assigned to them is around the Rigvedic age. Okay, so we can say that the painted grey ware pottery was used by the Aryans. Again in Bhagwanpura, we find a 13-roomed mud house, which indicates a large family, or maybe the house was occupied by some tribal chief. Okay. Cattle bones have been found in good quantity in all these above mentioned sites. Talking about the political organization and the administration of the Aryans, the system of government was mainly tribal. The tribal chief was the center of the administrative machinery and he was called the Rajan. The king's post was hereditary. But then again we have traces of some kind of election by the tribal assemblies. Okay. Several assemblies like the Sabha, the Samiti, the Gana, the Vidhata, etc. were formed which conducted the different military functions or the religious functions. And out of them, the Sabha and the Samiti are the most important. The most important functionary, okay, during the Aryans is the Purohit or the priest who assisted the kings. Okay, Purohit or the priest who was the most important functionary. And priests, Vashistha and Vishwamitra, they are the major priests who find a role in the Rigvedic time. After the Purohit, the next important functionary is the Senant, who used spears, axes and swords. But we have no mention about any officer who was responsible for collection of taxes, and neither we have any officer for administering justice. But we have some voluntary offerings made by people, okay, and these were received by the chiefs, and these voluntary offerings were referred to in the Veda as Bali. Prajapati is an officer who was authorized to look after a large pasture land or ground. Okay. Then spies were employed to keep an eye on the society. Kulapa is referred to as the head of the families, and the heads of the fighting hordes are called as Gramins. Okay, and again here we should understand that the kings, they did not maintain any standing army, although they kept on joining in conflicts with different groups, but they had no standing army, and all the military functions were performed by the tribal groups, who were divided into Gana, Grama, Vrata, etc. Right? Talking about the tribe or the society and the family, the identification of a man was by his clan. Okay, his clan was his identification. The tribes were called Janas, and the territory or kingdoms were not yet established. Okay, territories and kingdoms were not yet established till then. This is another word that is mentioned many times in the Rig Veda, which again means a large group of people who are again divided into some smaller units. These units were called Gramas, and they were involved in fighting because the king did not have any standing army, as we have discussed. Right? Family in the Rig Veda was referred to as Griha. And the families were large, that is many generations or several generations, they stayed together under a single roof. And the families were patriarchal mostly. Although patriarchal families, we have the good position of women during the Aryans, early Vedic period. Okay, the women could attend the assemblies, they offered sacrifices, they even composed hymns. Okay, widow remarriage was also practiced. Okay, the institution of marriage was well established, and we also find indications of some matrilineal traces also. Okay, there were no record of child marriage. Coming to the social divisions, from the Rig Veda we come to know that there was some kind of consciousness about the physical appearance of the people. Okay, and the term Varna was used for complexion. Okay, and we come to know from the Veda that the Aryans were of a fairer complexion compared to the indigenous people of the region. Okay, Varna is a term used for complexion. Dasas or Dashyus, they were treated as slaves and Sudras. Okay, they were the original inhabitants of the area. The tribal society was initially divided into three groups. That is, the priests who were the most important, then the warriors, that is the Senans, and then the people, common people. The Sudras or the Dasas and Dashyus, they appeared, okay, that group appeared towards the end of the Rigvedic period only. Okay. The divisions based on occupations had also started, but then this division was not very sharp. An unequal distribution of spoils of war, they helped the rise of the princes at the cost of the common tribes, and the priests or the Purohits were the ones who received tons of gifts, okay, or rewards from the spoils of war. Talking about the Rigvedic gods, the Aryans or the people, they tried to find religion in their surroundings. Okay, they tried to find religion in the surrounding objects, and they personified the natural forces and they gave them human or animal attributes. The most important divinity that is mentioned in the Rig Veda is Lord Indra, who is referred to as Purandara, that is the breaker of forts. Okay, Indra is considered as the warlord who led the Aryans to victory against the demons, and is also considered as the rain god. Agni, fire god. He acted as an intermediary between gods and the people, because they believe that whatever offerings we put in fire, okay, whatever offerings we put, that is taken to the gods in heaven in the form of smoke. So Agni acted as an intermediary between gods in heaven and the people on earth. Okay, Varuna personified water. Soma is the god of plants. We also have the mention of an intoxicating drink in the Rig Veda, which is named after god Soma. Right? Maruts specify or personify storm. We have the mention of female divinities also, like Aditi and Usha, who represented dawn. Female divinities, Aditi and Usha. The mode of worship during the Rigvedic period was mainly in the form of recitation of prayers, okay, and offering of sacrifices. Recitation of prayers and offering of sacrifices. Now, after the Rigvedic period, when we talk about the later Vedic period, the society or the other conditions, they keep on changing, okay? They keep on changing. We can see numerous changes if we compare it to the early Rigvedic period, okay? So, we will be discussing about the later Vedic period again in the next lecture, okay? So, I hope this video was quite helpful for you. Okay? So, do like and share the video, and let me know if you have any feedback or any comments in the comment section. Okay, so subscribe to the channel. Until we meet next, take good care of yourselves. Keep learning.